Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Attorney Sharif Silmi. I really want to dive right in today because it's going to be a bit of a potpourri session in the sense that I want to talk about the different tools that are available within the U.S. immigration system for individuals who are entrepreneurs. And there's not really a perfect fit. If you look at the various options that exist for an entrepreneur type visa, that is for somebody who wishes to, invest or start a business in the U.S., I think the most well-known, widely publicized, and the visa for which there's the most information available in the public domain as it relates to one acquiring immigration to the United States through investment would be the EB-5 program. Now, the EB-5 program is one that I believe is quite flawed, as it does still take a number of years for one to actually get a green card. And the amount of investment that is involved becomes almost unattainable for the vast majority of folks who are interested in coming to the U.S. So I think that when we are, looking at the options, we need to kind of understand that that particular visa may not be the best choice for us. So when we're thinking about this now, I do want to mention that recently the Biden administration reinvigorated an entrepreneur investment program that was first started under the Obama administration and was sort of shelved during the Trump years. And that it was essentially a visa category, or a parole program. So it's not quite a visa that allows folks who are able to demonstrate an investment of $250,000 from private equity, a 2.5-year visa. 2.5 years. And they can also qualify if they are awarded a local, state, or federal grant in the amount of $100,000. So this is an entrepreneur-specific visa. The main requirement here, or the requirement that one really needs to jump over the hoop, is that you have a private investment of $250,000 or you have a grant award, local, state, or federal, of $100,000. And this will allow you an initial period of 2.5 years, and it is renewable for an additional 2.5 years. So for a total of 5 years. And the idea is by the end of the 5 years that you will qualify for some other kind of visa to remain permanently in the US. And I think that this is, again, policymakers who don't really see the reality of what a lot of folks are going through. Because, if you have, for example, folks from India and China that sign up for this program, you're probably well aware that within, that 5-year span, even if you're able to get some kind of employment-based petition done through the company, like an employment-sponsored EB-2 visa, for example, you're not necessarily going to be able to, acquire a green card because you're going to be in a country quota backlog. So it's definitely one that has flaws. It's not a silver bullet, but it is a new program. And if you are in a situation where you're looking at a startup and you can get $250,000 private equity investment, we can get you on board and set you up. And we can help you from A to Z. It's not just, the service isn't just providing the visa access, but just helping you facilitate the establishment of the company, can guide you as well through the legal processes related to formation, even negotiation for different facets of business in the U.S., helping you to establish the relationships that are needed to be successful, particularly if you're coming directly from outside of the US. It's really good to have a trusted partner locally that can, get you to where you need to go. Now, this is also an option for people who are already in the US. So if you're, for example, on an H-1B, or you, have a different temporary status and that may be running out, you can move to an entrepreneur visa, 2.5-year initial term, and again, renewable for 2.5 years. So that could be a 5-year program that is available to you. So those are sort of the textbook entrepreneur visas that are available. And then we have what I think is an excellent tool for those who are qualified, and that is the E2 Treaty Investor Visa. Now, the beauty of the E2 Treaty Investor Visa is that the government is relatively vague as it relates to what the requirements are. So they talk about a substantial investment. Now, a substantial investment really means that you are investing in something that is substantial relative to the business enterprise. So we've done E2 visas for folks where that substantial investment was around $50,000. The typical investment amount that you want to make with an E2 Treaty Investor Visa is around $100,000. And if, for example, you are a partner, so you're entering as a 50% owner, then the entirety of the investment ought to be $200,000 or so, and you're responsible for $100,000. Now, in addition to the substantial investment, as the entrepreneur, as the individual that is launching the enterprise, you need to be the one who is entering the United States to control the business. So you are actually operating the business and, being a part of it. One, I think, popular and growing and in demand, entrepreneurship type business right now is definitely in the trucking category. So we have seen where folks who are, interested in working in the US as a trucker, and they have the means to purchase their own vehicle. That is, you can buy your own, truck and then acquire contracts. And there's contracts all over the place right now, whether it's through Amazon or, other national distributors, automotive contracts, where you can be involved in trucking and own your own truck. You can literally come today, well, maybe it takes a few months, but you can come into the United States from an E2 treaty investor country. And that includes Pakistan, it includes Bangladesh, it includes many countries in the Middle East, Europe, Canada, Australia, treaty investor country that you're a national of. So most visa categories require what's called chargeability. So it means that you can only, or you're categorized according to your country of birth. When it comes to the E2 treaty investor visa, the entrepreneur, the individual that is coming to, start the enterprise, it merely needs to be a national of a treaty country. So for example, if you are, if you happen to be born in India, but you are a national of Canada, you can qualify for an E2 treaty investor visa. Although India is not one of the countries that is listed in the, treaty countries. So again, we see this over and over again, individuals who operate trucking companies or want to start a trucking company, individuals who are in any kind of retail space, whether it's a restaurant or a grocery store. E2 treaty investor visa, in my opinion, is actually better than even the entrepreneur visa that I had started off, which gives you the startup visa gives you 2.5 years plus 2.5 years, because the treaty investor visa is renewable. You can renew the treaty investor visa for as many times as you like, so long as the business enterprise is continuing. So I find that folks who are really, engaged or wanting to engage in moving to the U.S. will have a great opportunity through the treaty investor visa. And the types of businesses that are available for treaty investor visa, applicants are extensive, and there's more than one way. Another way that we could think about for an entrepreneur, so that is one who owns a business outside of the U.S. and is seeking to enter the United States to carry on that business, is the possibility of using an L1A new office business. So, for example, if you have a technology company or any kind of company, distribution, sales, service-orientated company that is outside of the United States, and you want to open up into the U.S. market, we can use an L1A new office visa for you to establish that new office in the United States. And this is one that we do regularly. In fact, even folks who, I've done many cases for my friends from India where they have, for example, any kind of distribution company, and it's not just technology. It could be product distribution, goods distributions, folks that are even in snacks. We've done snack companies. So they have a small snack company that is operating in India, maybe with 25, 30 employees. And one of the, kind of owner managers or executives wants to come to the United States in order to open a new branch office for their organization, to set up a new sales channel, a new distribution channel in the US. That can be done through an L1A new office visa. And the L1A, for those of you who may not have heard of it previously, is an intercompany transfer visa for an executive or a manager. It's a non-immigrant visa. And if you're doing so as an entrepreneur, meaning you're opening a new office in the United States, it is only good for 1 year. However, you can renew that for an additional 3 years upon showing that the business is established and operating in the United States. And the best part of the L1A is it is a dual intent visa, meaning that although it's a non-immigrant visa, it is dual intent in the sense that you are entering the United States as a non-immigrant, but you can have an immigrant intent. You can have the intent to remain permanently in the United States through utilization of the companion, quote unquote, visa of the L1A, which is called an EB1C, which is a green card visa for intercompany transferees, executives, and managers. So, again, this is really an amazing tool that is, in fact, underutilized in a way. Now, people always wonder whether it is, in fact, designed, in a sense, for an entrepreneur. And it's not. To be fair, it's not designed for an entrepreneur. It's designed for a manager or executive of an organization. However, it is common for entrepreneurs to fulfill an executive or managerial role for their organization. So as long as you fit within the statute, you're able to use that as a vehicle to enter the US. And I hear advocates all the time who argue that there is no entrepreneur type visa, and that the US is kind of putting itself in a compromised position because we're not seeing the highly skilled capital type of immigrants coming to the US, and the EB5 is too unattainable. But I think that this lacks the critical analysis of using the tools that are readily available. Look, I'm not in a policy making position, right, or advocacy position. I'm in a represent my client's interest position. And when I'm representing my client's interest, I don't have time to complain about the system. All I do is look at the statutes, look at the different tools that are available, and utilize them to the benefit of my clients. And that's, I think, what we've been able to do very, very successfully. So, for those of you who are presently doing business outside of the US and you're seeking to enter the United States through a means that is related to a business undertaking, we can talk about an L1A visa, new business office. So essentially that new office can be a subsidiary or an affiliate of the foreign office, and that will allow you to conduct an intercompany transfer of a manager or an executive, and that individual will then be allowed to remain permanently in the United States. So this is, again, a excellent tool, and probably, one of the better options. The other one that we want to look at, I think, when it comes to entrepreneurs is the national interest waiver. So the national interest waiver is a second category green card petition. In order to qualify for a national interest waiver, you need to have some educational background. So some entrepreneurs who have not, established themselves through an academic or educational background might have a tough time with a national interest waiver, although there's a workaround. There is a workaround. And we can find a way to get you approved without the educational requirement. But if you have the educational requirement, it certainly makes things much easier. And the educational requirement is, of course, a master's degree. Now, if you don't have the master's degree and you have a bachelor's degree plus 10 years work experience and one other factor, that is also sufficient. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, then it's, like I mentioned, a lot harder, but we need to find what's called 3 categories of an E21 extraordinary ability analysis in order to position you through that national interest waiver. So that, again, is a bit more challenging if you don't have at least a bachelor's degree, but there is a possibility, there is an option there for you to submit your national interest waiver. Now, when we think about the national interest waiver, what are the requirements of a national interest waiver? Number one, that you work in an area that is of national importance and substantial merit. So if you are an entrepreneur, what kind of business are you engaged in? What are you doing? And can we articulate a national interest argument that you're working in an area of national importance? This is a very broadly defined category. We have successfully approved people. For example, there's people who launch businesses related to education, right? Like after school academies that, tutor kids after school. In light of COVID and the statistics related to, poor performance or lack of performance of students, we're finding that this is somehow, or this is an area where there is a national interest component. That is, educational businesses. We also see this for, people who are engaged in any kind of medical field. So if you're interested in opening, we've done cases for folks who have opened, dental clinics, things of that nature. So, anything that's medical related, also anything that works with special needs children, would definitely be a national interest narrative. And then there's a whole category of technology related national interest waiver cases. So these are ones that can also be extremely advantageous from a national importance and substantial merit category. Then we want to look at the second requirement for one who is, going to file a national interest waiver as an entrepreneur, and that is whether they are well positioned to advance their field. So this is sort of the part of the analysis that really depends on them and their own, interest and their own qualifications. So the focus will be on the individual and his or her talent. The area where an entrepreneur really, really shines as it relates to a national interest waiver is the third category, which is the balance test. So the balance test, why do we call a national interest waiver a waiver? Because we are waiving the requirement of having you go through what's called a permanent labor certification process. The permanent labor certification process is what is required when a US employer wishes to hire a foreign worker. So why are we saying that the national interest waiver is actually a really good fit for an entrepreneur? It's because you have a perfect reason for waiving the requirement of going through a permanent labor certification. You are starting your own business. This makes perfect sense from a national interest waiver balance test perspective. And in fact, one of the criteria for passing the balance test is that you are creating jobs. And as an entrepreneur, of course, this is something that you are going to be excelling in. So, as it relates to entrepreneurs, there are a number of different categories for which you may qualify. Another one is potentially an EB-1A, which is a visa for individuals of extraordinary ability. I've spoken quite extensively about that in the past. Now that will really depend not on, like a potential business, which I think a national interest waiver, you can get away with that. But EB-1A is going to be about what have you actually accomplished, right? Like if you've already made significant, important accomplishments in the past throughout your career, and now you are looking to acquire a green card based on that fact, then an EB-1A may be a good way. It's a self-petition, first category green card petition, and you may qualify under an EB-1A as an entrepreneur. But I think personally, folks either need to look at an E2 treaty investor visa because the capital requirement is not that daunting, as opposed to an EB-5, which is, particularly if you're a national of the country that accepts treaty investor visa. Secondly, it would be an L1A, new office. So if you're operating a business outside of the US and you want to open a new office in the US and come into the US as an intercompany transferee, that is an option. The third option that I mentioned is a national interest waiver. I think this could be the best option because it is a straightaway green card. Unfortunately, people from India and China, right now there's a backlog on second category visas. So that might be a problem. But for the rest of the world, it is a straightaway green card and one that you can, substantially benefit from an E2 visa for an entrepreneur. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful option. And then the last option I mentioned is an EB-1A, and that would be appropriate for someone who's already made, important and significant contributions throughout their career and has reached a certain level as a business person, as an entrepreneur, and perhaps they have original business related contributions that would allow them to, remain permanently in the US. So ultimately, I think that, those are the options that do exist for folks who are, in entrepreneur type, lifestyle that want to immigrate to the US. And, if you have questions or thoughts on this, please feel free to reach out to us. The information is provided here in the video and in the comments section on our YouTube and Facebook channels. I hope you find this information helpful to you and your families. And thank you, and we will see you next time.